Back for another one, and we got fancy new mics this time.
We do, man.
Yeah.
This is kind of aggressive right here in my face. So the other one was kind of tilted up, but I hear this is a better one, though.
What you said the other one was more aggressive. This one's a little smaller.
It is. The other one was more bulky, for sure.
Yeah.
This one I can see over the top of it. It's good.
Yeah.
You know, it looks like we're moving up in the world. We got a better brand.
I think so, and Calvin got me to spend some money on some new equipment for him, so hopefully the audio is much better. We'll see, though.
Well, I'm sure it will be. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
I'm Scott Hess, tax and business consultant.
I'm John Barton, small business owner. Remember the tortoise and the hare? Slow and steady wins the race.
We started Turtlesmith to help people start small businesses, providing information and resources to small business owners and entrepreneurs.
Build a solid foundation and forge your dreams.
This is always annoying to ask, but if you're liking this content, please like and subscribe. It's the best way for us to get more followers and more people engaged in this great business content. You can also follow us on all socials at TurtlesmithOK and find us at turtlesmith.com. Today's episode, we're going to talk about a hot button issue, one that I think you have strong opinions on, and that's immigration. And we're going to try to keep it kind of to the effects on the economy, but I'm sure we're going to waver here or there. So for better or worse, immigration is a foundation of the U.S. economy. The U.S. is considered the melting pot of the world with a lot of people from a lot of different cultures. And today it seems like there's a lot of fear and politics surrounding immigration.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of fear. I've told this story before about how I borrowed my friend's truck, his dad's truck, actually. And I needed to run to Home Depot or something like that. Anyway, I was gone like 15 minutes. The radio was tuned to Rush Limbaugh. And I promise you, in those 15 minutes, I came back ready to go to the nearest gun store, buy guns, stock up, and head to the border to repel the invasion.
Oh, yeah? He hooked you that bad?
Oh, yeah. It was crazy. And it's just 15 solid minutes of just complete and utter bullshit, making people believe that we were literally being overrun by criminals, terrorists, you know, and as George Carlin put it, you know, the ice-capades.
He was a little before my time, I think. Rush Limbaugh's not still around. Is he still alive even?
Luckily for the world, he is dead.
Oh, okay. Well, I never really remember listening to him, but I do remember hearing his name.
Yeah, Trump gave him the Presidential Medal of Freedom or something like that.
Did he really?
Posthumously.
Okay. All right. Well, for much of our history, immigration has been kind of largely unrestricted and even encouraged because we needed more people for growth in labor. But in the late 1800s is when we saw first kind of the restrictive laws come about. They were often based on race or nationality, the biggest early one being the Chinese Exclusion Act, which limited Chinese laborers from entering the country, denying them citizenship, and requiring certificates for reentry. And I didn't realize that this was not appealed until 1943.
Yeah, well, you know what the funny part
50
about that is?
years of Chinese racism.
Yeah, you know what the funny part about that is? We had to bring in the Chinese to have labor to build the railroads.
Yeah.
Right?
And then we made it a hassle for them.
So they were promised, there were agents that would go to China. This is where the term Shanghaied came from, by the way, because these agents would go to China and they would try to recruit people. They'd want to fill up a ship of people to come here, and they got paid by the body. So if they weren't making their quotas, they would literally drug people, get them on the boat, get their money, never see them again, of course. And then, of course, these people would protest and whatever, but by that time they're on their way to America.
Was this common in the city of Shanghai, and that's why they call it Shanghaied?
That's exactly right. That's where the term comes from. And the Chinese were promised citizenship if they went to America and worked, and then that was all revoked, and it was blatant racism against them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, from the 1800s on.
Yeah. Well, in the 20th century, immigration laws were really tied directly to labor needs, national security, or political priorities. But today, our system has become really complicated. It's got a quota system and it is really disconnected from labor demands. It relies, our kind of whole immigration policy and economy kind of relies on undocumented immigration.
we used to have a really easy way of doing this. We used to have seasonal laborers would come over here by the millions.
Yeah.
They would come, they would work there, they would work the season at whatever farms or whatever they were doing. Then they would go home. They wanted to go home. Then they would come back the next year. We actually still have that to the degree that these workers can get visas and do that people still do that. But as you say, the quotas are now completely restrictive.
Well, they're just disconnected from actual labor demands.
Yeah, and so people come over here now and stay because they feel like if they go back, they can't get back in again.
Mm-hmm.
And now there's the whole situation of the border on the other side of the border being overrun by cartels, who are controlling the illegal immigration, know, and these people are paying like a lot of money to get smuggled across the border
to work,
and
hopefully make enough money to live for a little while and then pay for your reentry.
And then they're often like literally indentured, to these cartels.
Yep.
And they have to, a portion of what they make, they have to work it off.
Yeah.
Not criminally, by the way. That's what a lot of people say.
It's not only the cartels though, but I think they do that a lot with the Asian community too. Chinese immigrant laborers and stuff. They'll bring them over and then they have to pay off the cost of bringing themselves over.
Yep. And our system, our broken system, is what contributes to that.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of saying to people, okay, you want to work? Here's how you do it. Making it easy.
Well, the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency it's relatively new. I didn't realize this. It was only established in 2003 in kind of the wake of the 9/11 attacks. It's a part of Homeland Security. Prior to that, though, the immigration was handled by INS, the Immigration and Naturalization Services. ICE is tasked with enforcing immigration laws inside the U.S., including identifying, arresting, and deporting undocumented immigrants. ICE does not control visas or legal entry. That falls now under the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services.
Correct.
And I didn't realize that. I thought it was one big department.
Well,
so I guess ICE is just the enforcement agent or enforcement arm of immigration.
Yeah.
They don't deal with any of the policies.
In the name, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. You notice
No,
though,
I got you.
You notice though that we don't talk about what ICE is doing to enforce customs laws, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, I think
like
not much. They're mostly just doing the immigration right now.
Yeah. They also don't enforce like the like customs, right? It's just basically duties.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are they collecting the duties? Like, I don't think that ICE does the trademark stuff.
No, I think there's a whole other department.
We could talk about that, not now, of course, but that was an issue with me with counterfeit products coming in, not knockoffs, right? But counterfeit products, which are knockoffs with a brand.
Yeah.
Like Canal
Using
Street
your
in New York.
brand,
Using my brand. I had
Gotcha.
a situation with that a little bit, but we're too tiny for them to even care about it. But basically, if something is trademarked,
that's wild. So like at the booth in New York, they're selling like fake Rolexes, fake
all of that,
fake Ray-Bans, and fake JB cases. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, not there, of course, but they're famous for selling all the fake stuff that's branded, Rolex and all the big brands.
I bought a fake Rolex in Washington D.C. for $20. Yeah.
Yeah, but did you know, for example, that anything that's trademarked, customs can confiscate all that at the border? Yeah, that's what they're supposed to do. If it's
Really?
trademarked and you register, if it's a registered trademark, that's the whole purpose of registration.
See, I thought their job was just to hassle people trying to get stuff in, get a little customs and tariffs.
Well, that's part of it, But if they find out that something is coming in and it's if they open up a shipment and it's a bunch of Rolexes that are not from Rolex or not authorized,
They're supposed to seize it.
they can seize it and charge the people. They can charge the people who are receiving it.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Okay. Well,
Anyway,
I
that's
learned
just a
something
little
new.
aside, but we're not hearing about all of these customs raids right now.
No, it's all the.
I'm pretty sure it's a
immigration
great time for people bringing in counterfeit goods.
probably. Well, there are really only two ways that people enter the U.S., either legally or illegally. Legal entry is permitted through visas, work, student, or family-based visas, or you can get a permanent residency, which is the green card. So these can lead to possible paths of citizenship for the immigrant, but this kind of legal entry is heavily regulated with the quotas that we talked about And applications can take months or sometimes years to actually get approved. Many legal immigrants are either highly educated, like doctors or engineers, or they end up sponsored by companies who have labor needs. We have a big one here in Oklahoma, Paycom, that sponsors a lot of software developers.
So going into the, we're going to get into this a little bit more, but the nefarious part of this is that some people are saying, some of the analysts out there are saying that part of all this crackdown and everything is to essentially create a quasi slave labor class of employees who are absolutely beholden to their sponsor. When they come over here.
And that's the truth. If you don't work long enough for them, they can revoke your visa and you get sent back unless you can find a job quickly.
So imagine what it is when you have a lot of workers who are free to move, right? The people who are undocumented, they don't like the pay, they can just pick up and go somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
But if the farm workers that are here are sponsored by the farm owner, they can't just pick up and go, because the farm owner will then just call ICE and say, hey, my workers ran off, go pick them up.
Our corporate overlords do not like freedom.
So what that literally means is that they can dictate the pay, they can short them, they can do all kinds of nefarious things to these people because they know they can't go anywhere.
I wonder if we'll ever get back to like some corporations trying to do the company stores. You remember those?
That's
like
what,
the old stores. Yeah,
that's happening now.
Yeah.
That is happening now.
Yeah, my great grandfather used to work for an oil company, and that's how they got paid in company money that could only be spent at the company store, and it gets you locked in. Him and like two other guys ran away from some company with no money because they just couldn't get away. You just get sucked into this cycle.
And they literally had their own police force that would bring you back.
It's wild.
And put you in a form of debtor's prison.
That's so crazy. Well, illegal entry is when an individual crosses the border into the U.S. without inspection or they overstay their visa. And a lot of immigrants choose this path because the legal path is just too complicated, too expensive, or often too time-consuming. Like we talked about, it takes years sometimes. So legal immigrants, though, in our economy, they work just like U.S. citizens. They fill jobs in healthcare, technology, construction. They even start businesses, and as I said before, many legal immigrants are highly skilled. But our economy really runs on the back of undocumented immigrants. They work in agriculture, food processing, construction, and really hospitality. The entire hospitality industry runs on undocumented workers.
A lot of undocumented immigrants in America are themselves highly skilled.
Yep.
They just don't work in their professions because they can't.
Right. And so whether we like it or not, undocumented labor is critical to many local and national industries. It's not always visible, but a lot of big businesses run on undocumented labor.
And how many big businesses have we seen prosecuted in the last, months?
Well, there have been some, but they just kind of get a slap on the wrist,
Yeah.
Like there was a couple companies who, they didn't pay like millions in payroll taxes for undocumented laborers, and they just kind of get a slap on the wrist. It ends up being cheaper to break
Why don't we
the law.
throw them into some detention camps with some Mylar blankets and freezing on concrete floors and see how long that lasts?
It's a good question, but who do you throw in? You just the CEO? Then they start putting a Ponzi in there,
Somebody responsible, right? I mean, that's one thing I like about Germany, and one thing I like about China, and they're not quite the same. But in Germany, the executives have criminal liability for bad decisions. So if they make decisions that hurt the company financially or in other ways, but mostly financially because they have a fiduciary responsibility to make good decisions, they can literally go to jail for that.
That's
Unlike
wild.
here where you get to retire with a golden parachute.
Yep.
Yeah,
you can get sued, but you can't be criminally charged.
Yeah, and in China, if you're an executive or a CEO of a company and you do something that harms the company, bad enough, usually something social, like a few years ago they had a scandal where they had this milk powder that was adulterated with like drywall dust or something.
Yeah.
They literally executed some of those CEOs. And
Really?
one of them, at least one of them committed suicide before he could be executed.
Good Lord. That'd be wild if we
Yeah.
had stuff like that here.
And they don't spend years on death row either. Once the judgment's handed down, within a week or two, they're dead.
That's crazy. Well, today, there are an estimated 8 million undocumented workers in the U.S. It's about 5% of our total workforce, and they pay an estimated $96.7 billion in federal, state, and local taxes, about $8,900 a worker. Now, ICE raids and deportation efforts have increased dramatically in many parts of the U.S. They're supposed to be prioritizing individuals with criminal histories, which I think we all support, but it does not seem like the reports, particularly on social media, reflect that.
Yeah, some of these criminals that they've been deporting are people with traffic tickets.
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally gone that far. They're going after the lowest hanging fruit. It's ridiculous. You know, the really bad criminals, they're not out there working at on a farm or anything like that. They're doing their bad criminal shit and they're keeping their heads down.
Yeah.
So these guys go after people that are the easiest possible people to get, the people that in everything but the documentation, they are good citizens.
Well, and it's my understanding that ICE has some kind of quota system as well for themselves. They have to arrest so many people.
It's
to keep up with budgeting.
It's the White House that's directing this. Sorry to get too political, but it's literally Stephen Miller's the guy. His name is. He's the head of the immigration enforcement policy for the White House. He's the one that in the White House is above DHS in terms of handing out marching orders. They have a quota of 3,000 arrests per day that they're supposed to make.
And that just forces the agents to go after the low-hanging
Absolutely.
fruit.
They're doing stuff like going to courts where
people are going to their trial. Yeah,
people came
hearings.
in, they have an asylum claim, or they're trying to go through the judicial system to get a green card or something like that and pressing a claim. And these are the people that are literally doing it the right way. And the government has created this legal loophole where they just simply drop the case. So the government is saying, well, we don't think they should be here, right? The person is saying, I think I should be here. A judge is supposed to adjudicate that. They have hearings on this, right? The person goes to their hearing, their check-in, say, hey, how are you doing? You still working? Everything good, right? Still doing everything you're supposed to do? And the government's like, Your Honor, we're just going to drop the case. Then the person is just immediately illegally in the United States with no reason to be there. And ICE takes them into custody right there at court. Boom, gone.
And that's how they're hitting their quotas.
That's part of it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the nuttiest thing you've ever seen. On one hand, they say to these people, do things the right way. They're doing it the right way, and they get kicked out anyway.
It's wild. And I think these tactics have sort of heightened fear amongst the immigrants.
Of course.
Both documented and undocumented, which has led to immigrants avoiding local businesses, schools, or hospitals. I've even heard reports that undocumented immigrants are too afraid to report crimes to law enforcement just because they don't want to deal with anything at all.
The police departments, the sheriff's associations, and everything have said this repeatedly over the years. The more that we do this type of heavy-handed enforcement, the less that the Latino community and the immigrant community trust law enforcement, so that when they see crimes, they won't help them, they won't report, they don't want their name involved, anything in any way, shape, or form.
Yep.
And it basically allows for criminals to do more crime against Latinos. And that's not only like illegal immigrants doing the crime, it's American citizens doing the crime against Latinos, because they know that they're
not going to report it.
Such a low likelihood that they're going to even bother to call the police and report it or try to get help.
Yeah. Well, whether you agree with it politically or not, and I think we both don't, there's going to be just some severe economic consequences across all industries, but particularly ones that rely on undocumented workers. I think we're going to find shortages in our food supply, which is going to increase our imports, raising prices for everybody. We're going to have huge staffing shortages in construction, hospitality, all the agriculture. People are going to find that their farms, they don't have the immigrant workers they need to pick all the fruits we're going to have some real trouble.
Do you know what the latest unemployment, insofar as we get any real numbers anymore out of the government, but I think that unemployment is like at 5% or 4%, which is
4 to 5% is considered healthy for the US
exactly
economy.
that is considered to be full employment.
And
From an economist perspective.
If you actually want to learn more about it, we have a whole thing about how they come up with the unemployment number and what it means in our economics course. But it's interesting how they do it. They only survey like 60,000 people to base that and then extrapolate that data for the whole country. And that's how they guess the unemployment number.
Right. And it's, that's a whole other discussion, as to how accurate are the numbers anyway. But that's the thing is that if we are literally at 4 or 5% employment, which is considered unemployment, which means basically that everybody who wants to work has a job.
Correct.
For the most part, right? Of course, there will be people who want to work, and in certain industries, they may not have enough jobs or whatever, but that's, in general, if you want to work, you will be able to find a job as an American citizen, right? As a citizen or a legal permanent resident.
Yep. 4 to 5% means a healthy capitalist economy.
So if we literally have 8 million or 10 million or 12 million, or as Trump says, 35 or 65 or 189 million.
I think the general number is 8 million undocumented workers.
Well,
that's the best average I could find.
Right, and that's probably accurate, right? But every time you hear these guys talk, it's like,
they like to exaggerate.
We have 350 million Americans, and then we probably have 425 illegal immigrants.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point of that is that if there were no employment here, they wouldn't be here. They don't want to leave their country of origin where their family, their friends, their culture, everything is. Some people, of course, will, right? Some people are like adventurers. They're like, you know what? I just want to go and enjoy life in America or whatever. But most people are here because of economic reasons.
Yeah, they're here to work.
They can't find work. They can't find enough work. They have, families to support, and they make a journey to a place where they're not even from, and just try to find a way to better their own existence. If the jobs weren't here, the employment wasn't here, they wouldn't be here.
Well, and the jobs that they're taking are not jobs that most American citizens born here are really after.
Dude, we've talked about this before.
There's not a line out the door for line cooks and busboys and maids and all that stuff.
Yeah, there are farms that farm owners that have said, any American who wants to work, come and work. And most Americans will quit before noon.
Yeah, they just can't handle it.
They don't want to do it, And then people are like, well, it's if you pay more, they'll do it. Even people don't understand, when you go out and you pick fruit in this country, you actually make pretty damn good money.
It's not bad.
But it is backbreaking work. And you got to be fast.
Usually they pay by like the bushel or the pound or whatever they pay by. And so you can make a lot of money, but you got to be quick and you got to be good at it. But the thing is people just say, well, you should pay them more. Fine. I'll pay $50 an hour for you to come work at my farm, but every strawberry costs $30 individually.
Right.
It's just the costs go up. And so if you get rid of these undocumented workers, we're going to see a spike in inflation as well. Inflation is going to go crazy. Prices are going to skyrocket. We're going to have to import goods to cover the stuff that we can't make domestically. It's going to be a disaster.
Well, a few years ago, Georgia put in some draconian laws, about this, about basically you could stop anybody at any time.
Yeah.
And basically all the farm workers, left the state.
Yeah.
And didn't come back. And millions and billions of dollars in crops were rotting in the field.
Yeah. It's just going to happen.
And one of you guys look that up and see what it was, what Georgia had for losses. But I mean, it was massive.
We also are seeing a real sharp decline in just spending in general.
Absolutely.
One of my clients were complaining the other day. He has a service, and he has a Spanish speaking service where, it can translate for people who don't speak English while they're customers of his. He was booked out months in advance, having hundreds of customers a month. Last month, he had 2 Spanish-speaking customers.
Yeah.
So he's built this whole business around the Spanish-speaking community, and now they won't frequent his business, not because of anything he's done wrong. It's just they're not out spending money.
The phone store that I go to, the owner there told me that his business is down over 50%. You know, Latino customers were 50% of his business, and now they're gone. My own business, you know, I'm seeing less Latinos coming in. My friend's business across town, also a pool room, generally on the weekends, very, very full with Latinos, is now less full, is you know, a lot less business. Whether somebody's here illegally or not, you know, and by the way, being in the United States illegally is a misdemeanor. It's a civil misdemeanor. It's not a major crime. And the only time it becomes a felony is if someone gets caught, is deported, and then they come back. The second time makes it a felony, a federal felony.
Right. Here's that deal in Georgia you were talking about. They were saying that 11,000 workers left the state. So that's 11,000 agricultural workers that were needed to harvest and pack spring crops just disappeared. And the state lost $180 million in crops.
Just that spring. Yeah.
Just that 1 year.
And I thought it was more than that. I thought it was a lot more than that.
$180 million in 1 year is huge.
I know it's
for
huge.
A single state producing that much crop. That's wild.
But you can go through and you can find these same sort of reports, you know, in all kinds of industries, you know, ranching, you know, just any kind of industry that relies heavily on hard hand labor has seen major decreases in workers.
Well, and farmers didn't lose $180 million either. The taxpayers did, because all of this was insured and paid for by us. You know, the farmer's not losing his farm because he can't get workers. He files an insurance claim. The government backs it. You know, the Department of Agriculture, they're paying it out.
So we lose.
We all lose when these kind of things happen. And so, in my opinion, honestly, we do need some type of immigration enforcement. I mean, unfortunately, we do have a criminal element that comes over. We've talked a little bit just privately, you and I, about having like, what happens if we had a free border policy with Mexico, or we just took Mexico in as a state and increased, you know, their poverty levels. I mean, it would just kind of then you get people from Central America and South America coming up, you know, so, but you have to have some kind of deal. But if you don't think about these policies with some type of common sense and logic to like what happens to our economy, we as the U.S. citizens are the ones that are going to end up suffering. Things are going to be more expensive. Inflation's going to rise. Businesses are going to fail because we don't have the labor force.
Illegal migrants, I call them migrants. You know, they're migrating. Immigrants, migrants, whatever. Migrant workers. On net, they are a net positive for the United States
100%.
Economically.
Yeah.
Like this has been, you can go through many studies and figure this out, right? That they're a net positive for the United States.
And needed,
you know. America really is, when we say it's the melting pot, I don't necessarily look at it as a melting pot, but I look at it as more of like jambalaya.
Okay.
You know, where you have a lot of disparate ingredients that all come together, and every bite you have different flavors, and the whole thing works.
Yeah.
Right. But this country, in order to function, needs a continuous flow of immigration. You know, it needs that because this is a large country. We have large and diverse needs. We just cannot be that insular.
I agree.
You know, and as a social experiment, this is one of the few places that is not culturally isolated and insulated and in some ways weighed down by millennium of tradition and superstitions and you know, just I don't even know how to put it, like culture, you know what I mean? Like like
Diversity.
right? Well, there's a lack of diversity,
Right, in other countries.
right? A lack of diversity and a heightened sense of tribalism, right?
Yeah.
Us against the world.
Yeah.
This is at least one place in the world where people always thought, if things aren't working for me wherever I'm at, if I want to escape this 1,000 years of tribalism, I can go make my way in America, you know? I just got to get there and work hard, and that was the American dream, right?
Yeah.
The land of opportunity, and that's what it was and should have been.
Well, that's why all our ancestors came at one point.
Exactly. You know, and I mean, we're sitting here, two white dudes, talking about diversity in America, but our ancestors literally stole this country from or the land from the people that were here before. I mean, as far as I know it, literally half of Oklahoma technically belongs to the Native Americans or indigenous people that were here. Or indigenous people that were transplanted here.
Well, yeah.
I mean,
they were, transplanted.
It's so confusing.
I mean, there were people here, but most of the Indians that ended up here or Native Americans that ended up here were because they were forced here.
Like it just trips me out that we have so many in this country right now that are like, I guess they're not maybe seeing the irony in it, but it's like, yeah, we know what immigration can do to a country because we came in the country as immigrants and took it.
Well, I think it's just these policies of fear. You know, it's a lot of fear mongering from the top saying that there are all these undocumented workers. They've stolen all of these jobs. They've ruined the economy. They're criminals and murderers. When really, if we just shifted that propaganda, because that's really what it is, to celebrate the fact that we are a diverse culture, a diverse country, I think things would get a lot better. But
they would get a lot better.
Instead, we're just dealing with this fear.
George W. Bush speaks Spanish, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of people don't know that, but he speaks Spanish. Actually, a very compassionate person. You know, I mean, I know people didn't like him as presidency. You know, some of the things he said.
The older I've gotten and the more I've learned about his actual presidency, the more I was like, yeah, he wasn't bad.
Yeah, you know, he wasn't. But the thing is, I shouldn't say he wasn't because there were some pretty bad things that were done. But I think you can find that with every president.
Right.
You know, but the point I want to make with this is that he stood up and said, we need to reform immigration. We basically need to have a national day of amnesty where everybody can come forward and we can look at your situation and give you a path to citizenship. You know how radical he would be called, a radical left communist if he were saying those words today,
right?
And trying to win the presidency.
Well, bringing it back to kind of the core topic of our podcast here, what do you feel like the effects are going to be on small businesses? I mean, you're already seeing effects of it. I feel like I'm going to have a lot less Hispanic clients this year for taxes. I haven't felt it yet, but I'm going to, I would imagine. A lot of my clients are feeling the pain right now just from decreased consumer spending. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think a lot of small businesses are going to literally close. Because it's just like when any other large population leaves. If you close down a military base, then you get dozens, if not hundreds, of small businesses that depend on that military base are gone.
Right.
Because that money just goes away.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you have, I don't know, let's just say 100,000 Hispanics in a city that are working, they're paying rent, you know, they're buying bread, they're buying all the things they need to buy. And, you know, I don't know, let's just say $1,000, do the math real quick, 100,000 times 100 or times 1,000.
$1 million.
$1 million.
Yeah.
Right? That's $1 million gone from the economy.
Or 100,000 times 1,000?
Yeah.
That's like $100 million.
$100 million gone from the economy.
Right.
Right there. How many small businesses can be funded with $100 million?
Oh, absolutely.
You know, I mean, we barely make $1 million, right?
Right.
So if 90% of my business was gone, what would happen to me?
Yeah.
My entire life would collapse financially.
Yeah.
You know, what how many employees do I have now over here? Like 10?
I mean,
12,
altogether,
15, I don't know.
To 20.
20 employees.
Yeah.
In the last 4 years, we've been able to build up to 20 employees.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine? And imagine that, and none of my employees are undocumented, right? But imagine if all of them,
As far as we know.
if all of them, if all of them depend on the money from that immigrant population, and it's just gone. That's 20 Americans, citizens that are just gone. They're out of a job. Now, whether they can find a job somewhere else, maybe they can, maybe they can't. But odds are, just like when a giant plant closes, just like when a military base closes, odds are they won't be able to quickly find another job.
Yeah. Well, if we see these hard tactics continue and 3,000 arrests a day and people just getting deported by, the millions, we're going to be in some real trouble, I think, as a economy. I'm hoping that a lot of this is mostly just posturing. But if this continues as a hard set policy, I don't see any way the hospitality industry survives. I think a lot of restaurants are going to be closing. Hotels are going to struggle to find maid staffs and people to run things. I think a lot of our wants and needs are going to collapse. Our entire food chain is built on undocumented workers. I don't see any way we're going to be able to feed ourselves without a big influx in imports, which means just skyrocketing prices.
There's another part of this too. Because of these policies being so draconian and so heavy-handed, I mean, people are out there comparing them to the tactics of the Nazis and stuff like that. I hope that doesn't get us censored here, but there are parallels to this stuff, right? Mm-hmm. There are parallels to creating a culture of fear and then taking that fear and oppressing groups of people and having the people that were manipulated into fearing the other or the immigrant cheering it on. So now you have half the country pitted against the other half.
Yep.
The half that is protesting is talking about doing things like national general strikes where they just don't go to work or they just don't buy anything.
A single day of people not buying stuff for these corporations is devastating.
Right. And watch what happens when that extends into a week or so, when something like the was it Montgomery with the buses, when they went like an entire year or over a year without using the buses, and they were like the city and businesses were cracking down, like trying to get people to go back and ride the buses. Mm-hmm. And the community banded together and they were giving each other rides. They were making sure they could get to work and all this stuff. And they basically just destroyed the bus business as far as the city went,
Right. In order to get their points.
And that was on a relatively small scale. And you see how much it angered the business community with something like that. Well, what's going to happen if 80 million of us just stop consuming? Stop consuming everything but the barest of essentials, cut our subscriptions, cut everything. We would generally be happier as people, probably.
Probably.
It's
a hard thing to organize.
But what happens when 80 million people decide to call in sick?
Yeah.
Literally the economy can be ground to a halt over this stuff. And that's what happens when you go after the most vulnerable people. And not only does it affect those people who are losing those jobs and the owners, the business owners who depend on those jobs and depend on that money, you're affecting the emotions and the well-being of all the other people who just want to live in a peaceful country and think that we are a good people.
Well said. We kind of need to wrap up, but I think our final kind of task that we like to give to small business owners, if you're a small business owner, you really need to take a hard look at your employees, your customer demographic, and see how this immigration crackdown and these ICE raids are going to start affecting your business and plan for it. If you have a lot of Hispanic customers, if you have Hispanic employees, whether they're documented or undocumented or any nationality for that matter, you really need to take a hard look to see if your business is going to be able to survive this next year if this is ongoing.
Well, one thing you can do is make sure you're a high-profile Trump supporter. So if you're like in Nashville or Memphis,
come on now.
No, wait a minute. This is a real thing, right? when ICE went down there
Mm-hmm.
to go and raid the restaurants down there, all the restaurants that were owned by conservative Trump supporters, like Kid Rock, for
Yeah.
example, somehow got a heads up and were able to close and give all their employees the day off.
Yeah.
So they didn't get raided.
Well,
So, this is the point is that there has to be equal justice and equal application of the law.
I agree.
And I know I was being facetious when I said that, but this is the kind of thing we're talking about. As a small business, yes, you have to look for this stuff. You have to look at, like, does your business depend on illegal immigrants or Latinos? And it's not only the illegal ones, right?
It's not just your employees too. You got to see if your customer base.
Right.
Really
Well, here's the
survives
other
on it.
thing. There's a lot of Latinos that are here legally in America that are not going out and spending either.
Just because they don't want the hassle.
They don't want the hassle. They don't want to take a chance on being stopped and frisked and asked for their papers and all that stuff. Some of them are doing it because of that. Some of them are doing it out of solidarity.
Yeah. Well, we got to wrap up this episode. Check us out on turtlesmith.com, at turtlesmithok at all of our socials, and check out our lives, which was what we got to stop for, 4:30 Central Time on Thursdays. We'll answer all your business questions, recap the episodes. It's a good time. Check it out.
Yeah, it should be fun. I'm
right.
sorry, guys. This is really a sensitive topic for me.
No worries.
And I'm trying not to be upset about it. I just want to wrap this up real quick. I'm sorry. I know you want to wrap that up.
1 minute.
I got I'll take 30 seconds. We all need to just take the temperature down on both sides, on all sides, and just truly, truly try to find a rational solution for this, to do reform that doesn't require us to use these heavy-handed oppressive tactics.
Fair enough. Well said. All right. We'll see y'all next week. This is always annoying to ask, but if you're liking this content, please like and subscribe. It's the best way for us to get more followers and more people engaged in this great business content. You can also follow us on all socials at Turtlesmith OK and find us at turtlesmith.com.